The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, this is a follow-up video to one of my last videos I did at the airport where I was talking about Jermall Charlo, fresh off of his win against Juan Montiel this past weekend. You know, it was a performance where, you know, he won. It was a clear win. We're not going to dispute that it wasn't a clear win, because it was a clear win, but it wasn't the kind of performance that people were hoping for from Jermall Charlo, and it continues this run of mediocrity at 160. You know, Jermall Charlo's a fantastic fighter. You know, got one of the best jabs in the sport, but at 160, particularly in big fights, not big fight, but most of his performances at 160 haven't been what they were at 154. Yes, he had a David Vincenzo performance, but we haven't seen the Jermall Charlo we saw in 154. With that being said, he has a title. He's been running his mouth, flapping his gums, you know, talking about how he wants to unify the division. He called out a lot of fighters in his post-fight interview. He called out Canelo Alvarez, who is not a middleweight anymore. He called out Triple G, who is more than likely going to be fighting Ryo Murata in Japan later this year. So neither one of those guys are viable options for him right now. But a guy who is a viable option, who he continues to not fight, who he continues to show no ambition to want to fight, is a guy who's also world champion in his division. Better yet, a guy who's also an undefeated American world champion in his division, and that's Demetrius Andrade. Now, I like this fight a lot because both these guys are at a stage in their careers where I feel like they need each other. Jermall Charlo needs that big breakout fight at 160. Demetrius Andrade needs that big breakout fight at 160. They're both fantastic fighters. What I have a problem with Jermall Charlo is the lies, the media manipulation, and the contradictions, because that's what we've seen from Jermall Charlo. A lot of lies, a lot of media manipulation, and damn sure a lot of contradictions. So let's take it back. Let's go all the way back to 2016. Okay, Jermall Charlo knocks out Julian Williams. In the post-fight press conference, Demetrius Andrade runs up on him, and he tries to make a fight there with him. Jermall Charlo tells Demetrius Andrade that I'm not a matchmaker, bro. Let's fast forward 5 years. He says in his post-fight interview this week, or his post-fight press conference, I should say this week, that he needs to beat Juan Montiel to fight him. All right, who the hell is Juan Montiel? Who is Juan Montiel? Most people didn't even know who Juan Montiel was before this past weekend. So I don't know why he's talking him up like this big fighter and trying to use him as a roadblock in what's a massive unification fight. And then, you know, outside from Demetrius Andrade, do you guys remember when he said the whole thing about David Benavidez having to be vaccinated? I mean, it's getting ridiculous with Jermall Charlo. And I'll be honest with you. You guys know that I've spoken a lot of things that haven't been so positive or haven't been so glowing of Canelo Alvarez. But at least with him, when he decided not to fight Demetrius Andrade, it's a bit more understandable because he's the biggest money-making machine in the sport right now. There's not anybody in boxing except maybe a guy like Anthony Joshua who can draw as much as the Canelo Alvarez. So I don't condone what he's doing, but at least I can understand where he's coming from, because he's got everybody and their mother wanting to fight him. Jermall Charlo, it's not the same thing. I was just there in Houston, okay? I was at the Toyota Center. I was right there ringside. I had a great view of the arena. He didn't sell it out. You know, they had to put a big-ass tarp over the upper deck. So he's not this big star that he thinks he is, or that PBC and Al Haymon have propped him up to be. He is a good fighter, a good undefeated fighter with a lot still to prove in his boxing career. And I feel like he's doing himself a big disservice because, you know, as much as I like Demetrius Andrade, I'll be real about Demetrius Andrade. I think while he's still very good, I think he's a fighter that's slipping a little bit. I mean, I still think he's the best middleweight in the world, and I think in my humble opinion, from 160 to 168, I think he's the best fighter in the world. That's my opinion. But I do think he's slipping a little bit. I don't see some of the things I used to see when he was at 154. So with that being said, I think it'd be a great fight for Charlo. You know, if you beat him, you knock him out the way, you got Demetrius Andrade's scalp on your resume. You beat a guy who, if we're being honest, through 30 fights, he's maybe had two close fights, two competitive fights in his career. And it's not because his resume's bad or he's fighting bums like people say. He's fought a lot of good, solid guys who gave other big names problems, but they didn't give him problems because he's showing that extra bit of quality in his performance. So, yeah, man. Look, Jermall Charlo, it's getting to a point where, like, he's slowly but surely passing Canelo Alvarez as far as the guys that my patience is running thin with him, because you can't be talking how he's talking in the media, and then you're fighting the guys like Montiel, you're fighting the guys like Brandon Adams, and you're supposed to go in there and show why you are Jermall Charlo, why you are the quote-unquote hitman. He called himself the hitman, but we all know in boxing there's only one hitman. That's Tommy Hearns. That's Thomas Hitman Hearns. Ain't no Jermall Hitman Charlo. It's only Thomas Hitman Hearns. So he needs to drop that moniker, because he ain't whacked nobody in the middleweight division since he's been there. So make this fight happen, man. We want to see this fight happen. I think September will be a good time for this fight. No excuses. Boo Andrade's calling him out on Twitter. He's called for that fight for years. Jermall Charlo has been flapping his gums, talking about he would knock him out, he would do this, that, and the third. But we see no ambition from Jermall Charlo. We see no ambition. I'm not even going to blame Charlo. We see no ambition from PBC, from any of the matchmakers or anybody on that side of the street, quote unquote, because they're the ones that made that term. I want to see this fight happen because we need clarity in the middleweight division. The middleweight division is in shambles. It's not a very good division right now. Golovkin is old and he's aging. He's fighting Murad in a fight nobody really asked for. Demetrius Andrade can't get without anybody. Jermall Charlo's win his protection, and then the rest of the top 15 is just like it's cannon fodder opposition, cannon fodder, fighters we never heard of in the sport of boxing. Guys that really haven't established themselves yet. So we need this fight to happen, not just because it's a fight that should happen, but so that we have an idea of who is who in the middleweight division. We can't have no confusion. We need to know who's the best, and we need to solve that as soon as possible. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Jermall Charlo, we'll see what happens with Jermall Charlo before I make my next video, but I just wanted to touch on what's happened since the fight, and I had a chance to watch the press conference and seeing Demetrius Andrade call him on Twitter and all that stuff. We need this fight between two of the best middleweights in the world. Demetrius Andrade, the WBO champion, versus Jermall Charlo, the WBC champion, in the unification fight. Two American undefeated champions. How could you go wrong? The build-up would be great. They both got big personalities. I think they would bring out the best in each other at the press conference and in the ring. You're cheating the fans by not making the fight happen. But anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. You guys, make sure you comment on the video. Take the time to subscribe. Like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just kidding, Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys.